Hey, AP students, we're going to work on some practice problems today. You can find these in your notes that we've kind of been working on. You would have filled them out when we learned about the GDP deflator. You'll see these as we kind of go. Some of them, not all of them. You don't really need the slides, but here we go. So we're going to get started. So for this first one here, we're simply figuring out our GDP. So take a second. Okay, you're figuring out the GDP. It says list it in billions of dollars. Pause it, write down your answer, and see what you come up with. Okay, so again, the keeping things straight in these questions is kind of the biggest thing. So remember, there is an equation that we use that's C plus I plus G, and then we also plus imports minus, exports minus imports. Usually that's labeled with an M. Okay, sometimes exports is an X. I apologize. Okay, and that's going to give us our GDP. You don't have to remember that. You just got to remember that we've got to subtract these two, and that illegal drug activity is not included. So we're actually just going to cross that off. Okay, and then I'm also going to take these. I'm just going to total these here. So this is a negative 400. All right, I'm going to keep track of that. And then we're going to add the rest of these. So here's your household consumption. I changed the wording a little bit. This is your government. I changed the order. And then your gross private domestic investment. That's going to be your business investment. That's your I, okay? So you're adding all these together. We've got 2,000, 1,500. We've got $4,500, $4,500 worth of stuff, okay, in billions, so it's actually 4.5 trillion, okay? And then we've got to take off this 400. So your final answer should be 4,100 billion, add 9 zeros. So we actually turn out to be 4.1. You can write it just like this. So 4,100 billion dollars. Pretty straightforward, just got to keep things straight. Okay, let's move on to the next one. All right, so we're figuring out here the unemployment rate. We've also got down at the bottom the labor force participation rate, as well as a kind of secondary problem with a change in the situation in terms of the math that happens. Okay, so go ahead and pause it real quick and see if you can come up with the answer. Okay, back to it here. Let's figure out these unemployment rates. Again, keeping track of what you are looking at is the biggest key. So remember, unemployment has, when we talk about it, we've got people that fit into three categories. We've got not in the labor force, we've got employed and unemployed. Remember that employed and unemployed are the people that we are most worried about for unemployment rate. So it gives us our unemployed people right there. Okay, so we've got our unemployed up here. We can write that in. We also have our employed. That's going to be 1,500. I'm just going to kind of write that into our chart here, okay, and get that into a format that I can see. Now the tricky part is we've got to add the unemployed to the employed to figure out our labor force. Okay, so here is our labor force. We've got 1,550. All right, so you've got to do that math real quick. You take 50 divided by 1,550. That's going to give you 3.2 and multiply by 100. 3.2%. Okay, round to the nearest tenth for those. All right, so now we've got to find the labor force participation rate. Okay, a little bit different there. Okay, so this is going to be the people that are working. So we know those. We've got the unemployed people. Okay, so we have the people that are in the labor force. We already have that at 1,550. Now we've just got to figure out the entire population, which in this case, our entire population is 4,850. All right. And we do the math real quick on that. It's going to be 31.95%. Okay, for our labor force participation rate. Remember, we are eliminating the rest of these people. That's one of the inaccuracies of the labor force, or I'm sorry, the unemployment rate. Okay. All right, last but not least, we've got to change our math down here. So read close. Assume 150 of the 15-year-olds turn 16. So now they're in, okay, in terms of potentially being a part of the labor force. Okay, 100 decide to immediately start searching for jobs. So we're going to add 100 to these. Okay, so now we have 150 that are unemployed. The tricky thing to remember is we've also got to add 100 to this. Okay, so our labor force, okay, and again, this is our labor force, right? We've got to add 100 to that. All righty. We're not adding 100 to that. We're adding 100 to this. We're adding 100 to the 1550. So now we've got 1650. Do the quick math. Our unemployment rate now becomes 9.1%. All right. Make sure you're figuring those out. Again, memorizing these things over here, keeping your math right is the biggest challenge. Okay, next problem here. You've got some things to figure out. Go ahead and take a second, pause the video, make sure you're taking your time. And again, these are all examples of questions you might see on the short answer part of the test when we eventually get there. And I'm talking like the final test, like the AP exam. So again, knowing how to do these can be very, very helpful. Okay, so I've gone through and I've done these. Hopefully you're practicing these. Our nominal GDP, I'm just going to show you the numbers I get. I get 66 plus 112 plus 21. That equals 199. All right. Now, for the base year, 2014, the base year, our real and nominal GDP are going to stay the same. Okay, kind of help us out there. So give us a little bit less work to do. Now, I went through nominal GDP is the easy one, right? That's the one that is not adjusted for inflation. So our nominal GDP are those numbers right there. And I just went through, and you can check your math with me. I had 75 plus 338 plus 90. I got 503. Okay. For the real GDP, remember that's the one where we are taking the 2014 prices and giving it the 2015 quantity. So my numbers for that were 90 plus 208 plus 70 equals 368. Okay, so my real GDP for that year is 368. Now, to figure out the GDP deflator, remember we've got to figure out from 2014 to 15. What we've got to do is we've got to figure out the deflator number for each side. Remember, for the base year, it's always going to be 100. It's the nominal divided by real GDPs, right? Times 100. So 199 divided by 199 is 100. So we're going to have 100 for our 2014. I'm just going to write it right there to our 2014 deflator. Now, nominal over real GDP for our 2015 is going to be 503 divided by 368. That's going to equal 1.36. Multiply that by 100 equals 136. All right. Now, we've got to figure out the average inflation rate. Super simple if you remember. It is the change, okay? So from our base year, which is 100, out of our new year, which is 136, divided by 100. Okay, so you get equals 36 divided by 100, multiply by 100 to give us a percentage. You've got 36% for number 5. Okay, Last but not least, our inflation rate from 2014 to 15 in entertainment. Okay, very simple. If you know the formula, don't think too hard. Here's our entertainment column or our row. Okay, we changed by $1 divided by the original 350. That equals 28.5%. Okay, so anyway, those are your answers for that. You are, if you're doing well on those, good work. If not, make sure you get a hold of me. All right, guys, one more problem here. I'm gonna pop it up there, pause it for yourself, and then I'll show you how to complete it. Okay. All right. Whole lot going on here. We're actually going to skip. Sorry, I should have told this before you pause it. We're actually going to skip D. We're not quite there yet. And we're going to also skip B. So if you weren't sure on those, there's a reason why. Okay. So first thing, we've got to figure out the real GDP. And I'm going to go for Banton first. I'm going to try to give myself some room here. All right. Here's how we figure out the real GDP when we only have this information. Okay. And we got to get the per capita here in a second too. But we have, okay, 525, all right, at the deflator of 105 is the same as what when the deflator is 100. And then we've got to cross multiply here, okay? And so after you do that math, we're going to get a real GDP of 500. Now, we've got to figure out the per capita. We've got to divide it by the population. Divide that by 25, okay, and we're going to get to $20. All right. For the per capita for MENA, you're doing the same thing. All right. Obviously with different numbers. You've got 390 over 130 is equal to X over 100. That's going to equal 300. Divide that by 10. That's going to equal $30. Okay. So that's the number for that. For the inflation rate, we already have that figured out. The inflation rate in each country, okay, is right here. Inflation rate in Banton is going to be obviously 5 divided by 100. That's 5%. 30 divided by 100 equals 30%. So we have that. All right. Now, the last one they tie into our production possibility stuff. It says that MENA is operating inside its production possibilities curve. So that means that they have some unemployment. Okay, so that's MENA there. And it remains unchanged. That means it's staying put. Okay, so they're operating somewhere what they're able to produce. Their resources stay the same. As a result of the change in real GDP, so our GDP for MENA changes from 300, okay, I'm sorry, from 200, and now our real GDP is 300. So it increased. Okay, so we're producing more stuff, we're using more resources. From year one to year two, MENA's economy moves. Let's just say we're going to set a point here where it starts in year one. Okay, and we know since we're producing more stuff, we're making more money, we're using more resources. Okay, is we are going to be closer somewhere to that production possibilities curve. Okay, that's what they want you to be able to describe. Last but not least, our cyclical unemployment is going to decrease in the short run. Okay, and the reason why it's decreasing is because GDP is increasing. Again, we have this number compared to this number. Cyclical unemployment is going down, okay, because we need people to produce. We're going to assume we need people to produce at that higher real GDP. All right, kind of a lot there. We're going to practice it a little bit more as we keep moving forward. Email me with questions. Keep doing those My AP assignments.